Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to the Draw Juice Critique Universe. I'm Chris Petracchi, and here what we do is my students submit their work, their portraits, and I critique them, and I give a lesson wherever I can, instruction. Hopefully, it's pragmatic and efficient and beneficial to you guys. And so I'm just happy to be here. I'm grateful that I have eyes to see, a voice to talk. I've got my buddy Nick who's helping me out. He helps me out graciously with the sound and making sure everything's going good. And let's see, this weekend I had a performance, played some guitar and sang at a restaurant. And here's me, hey, I'm here. And that went well. So I was grateful for that. But then we had cold. We had a sore throat the next day. Turns out it's gone now. So it's pretty much nothing. But, you can imagine feeling a little bit, having a question in your mind as to whether it could be something more. So we went down and got tested today, my wife and I. So we'll find out, I don't know, this weekend. But where is everybody? I want to see everybody. But where's everybody? I'm going to turn this down here. Jody is good. Good evening. John R., how you doing? I'm good. You're healing from surgery and happy to be here, Jody. Man, glad it went well. Definitely got to heal. I know how that feels. I've had a few surgeries before. And you got to take care of yourself. Be good to yourself, right? Let others take care of you. That's the hardest thing, is to let others take care of you when you're not used to being sick, right? It's hard to be the sick one. let yourself be sick and get back to normal. Hey, Mimika. Hey, how you doing? Welcome. David from Argentina. That's awesome. South Sudamerica. Hola, ¿qué tal? My Spanish is so poor, but I have some. Let's see. Let's start off kind of like letting people come in, and I have a quote that I thought I could bust out, which is from Jordan Peterson, the famed psychologist. He says, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. And I thought that was very helpful when I heard that, because I compared myself to everybody and, as a standard, right? And when you do that, it's understandable that you compare yourself to the highest person that you know of in the thing that you want to excel at, and you shoot for that. So you need to have a goal that's completely understandable, legitimate, and it's how we work. But when we compare ourselves to the number one person, it's kind of unfair, and we can get a little bit discouraged, right, if we're not careful. So it's nice to know what our regions of people being able to do things like athletics or sports or music, but we have to have like a realistic way to calibrate and measure, right? We don't know those people. We don't know what their lives are like. They could be complete wrecks, but they accelerate in this area, so people pay them a lot of money, right? So it says nothing about their character, the content of who they are, right, morally. So that's something else we attribute to people who can accomplish great things, is that we think they're great people. That might not be the case. So you don't want to make a mistake. Compare yourself to that person with only knowing just part of who they are. And so just compare yourself to who you were yesterday and not who someone else is today. And that way you can you can measure realistic progress because you and you know who you were yesterday and the day before that and the day before that. And you can just compare yourself to who you are right now to the previous version of you 24 hours ago or a week ago. And in that way, that's pretty exciting. And it takes a lot of that burden off, right? It just throws it out so that you can actually see your progress and celebrate the progress, because that's important too. If I'm always comparing myself to, Eddie Van Halen or Leonardo da Vinci, it's going to be rough sailing, right? We need those small wins psychologically to kind of climb up the mountain. So we need the little wins, the little gains, um, over small increments of time. So we need enough um, encouragement, right, to keep moving and to keep yourself excited, keep yourself energized. Okay, so take that for what it's worth. Let me know in the comments if that speaks to you or helps you in some kind of way. Right? Let me just check that. Hola, muy bien tu español. Gracias, señor. Gracias. Hey, Noah, how you doing? Gabriel from Mexico. What's going on? ¿Qué pasa? ¿Qué pasa? I can say, ¿qué pasa? Yeah, sure does help, John and Jody. I think so, right? So if you guys check out Jordan Peterson, let me know in the comments if you know him. And also let me know in the comments what you're grateful for today. Hey, Jessica, welcome. What's happening? Yes, good to see you. We're just talking about being good to yourself, comparing yourself to who you are today. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. And so Jessica's here. She's one of my former students. Worked with me live one-on-one online. And then we actually met in person. We went to some figure drawing live events here in Northern California. That's so fun. That's like the best, right, Jessica? All right, so I wanted to talk about, before we get to the critiques, about measuring in proportion. And raise your hand if that is something that you're interested in. And I'm going to say, yes, you're probably interested in that. And I've got just the thing for you. These are my 5 steps. It's like a little checklist that can be helpful to you for dealing with proportion and measuring. And proportion, what is the definition of proportion? Well, proportion is the relationships of the parts to themselves and to the whole. So again, I'll repeat that. Proportion is the relationship of the parts to themselves and the parts to the whole. So it's ratios. So if we look at this top number 1, what I find helpful for me is if I check my proportions. Okay. And let me see here. Let's just go through it. You check your proportions. Number 2 is you simplify shapes. 3 is you check your angles. 4 is check placement. 5 is positive and negative shapes. So if you follow these things, and there are many ways to measure and find proportions, but if this could help. And let me just take a sip of water here. So proportion, right? A to B up on the top here. Comparing It's a comparative measurement. Within the whole, there's the parts, and I'm comparing the part A to part B. Okay. And so it's the relationship of the parts, A and B are the two parts, to the whole, this whole line segment. Okay. Simplifying shapes. You want to find shapes, devise shapes that are simple but characteristic of the object that you want to draw. Checking angles, and we'll get into that. Checking placement, positive, negative shapes. So let's kind of jump into this a little bit. Yeah. Nick O says yes. I think he's saying yes because he loves life. He's just yes in the chat. But he might also be saying yes, proportions might help him. He's an IT guy, so I think proportions in IT come in super handy, probably more handy than we know. All right. So I'm going to have my little checklist off to the side here. And you can just take a screen of that if you want. And let's look at how this works with a common pair. John R says yes to. Okay, good. Looks like I'm on the right track. I'm in the right group. We're in the right universe. If proportion is something you find applicable to your drawing. Okay, so proportion. Well, within this shape, within this pair, I may have a couple of parts, right? Let me just see if I can, what do I got here? Make that a little bit smaller. Smaller. This thing. Hey, yeah. So we got this. We have the height, and height, incidentally, is easier for us to judge by sight than width. I don't know why, but I start usually with how high, how tall something is. So top of the head, bottom of the chin, let's say, or top of the head to the feet if it's a figure. And I get that height, and then that height doesn't change, right? It stays the same. And then I get my width by measuring the height, finding the width. So, but if we look at this proportion thing and we take the whole from top to bottom, and then we look at the relationship of the stem connecting to the pair, right? It's about there. And then that stem to the rest of the body of the pair is B, right? So there's A, there's B. Okay. Pretty simple, right? So we're just checking things. Another way is to, let's say we take the height of the body of the pair, and now we need to find the width. What are we going to do? Well, I'm going to take that, rotate it, and then take a comparative measurement from the height of that pair to the width of the pair, say at the widest part. And I'm going to find it's a little bit, it's taller than it is wide at the widest part of the pair. So it's going to be a little less, right? If we change the color of this one, let's say, we'll make this like this. Okay, so the red one is a little bit longer than the blue one. So I don't get too technical about it. If I can find that it's exactly halfway or it's a third, I'll go for that. But if it's anything a little more or less than a half, or more or less than like a third, a half, or three quarters, I just kind of go, it's a little less. So I'm not too, precise about it. But I know that if I take this measurement of A here, this one, and I use my pencil, and I mark off that space, and then I tilt it like this, right? I'm going to know to draw the width a little bit less, right? Not all the way here, a little bit less. And then I can check that. Okay, so I'll take kind of an initial measurement, kind of a rough estimate, and then I'll check it, right? I'll make a guess, an educated guess based on that vertical measurement, a little less, put that down on the paper, make a mark, and then I'll check that. So what else could we do here? We could say, um, let's say we want to kind of know this part of the pear right here. There seems to be, a skinny part of the pear, and then you've got a kind of a rounder, wider part. Okay, well, where's that? Well, maybe that's a third. That seems to me to be around a third. So if I could split this pear into thirds, thirds work because it's kind of obvious where this width change occurs. I could split it into half, but it's sort of half doesn't really help me that much. Or we could, again, do the total length from the tim the tip of the stem, and we could find out maybe, what is that? Maybe that's a quarter, roughly speaking, right? So now I've got a fourth. So I could divide it by fourths, and I could take that one known unit here, and then just move it down until I find and account for the total height of my pear, right? So I use that one unit. That becomes my unit of measurement, a fourth. In this scenario, I used a third to find the, how tall that pear is, or within the pear, where does that change come, where it starts to become wider. Okay, so that's sort of the proportion part. It's taking a comparative measurement of one thing in the pear or the face and comparing it to another thing. So we take the height, compare it to the width. We take a stem and we compare it to the total length or the total width, right? You could use this stem and find, how, let's see, we take this stem here. That's that stem. We can move it and say, how does this leaf compare to that known unit of the stem? Because that's going to be my unit of measure. And I could say, well, maybe we're lucky it's twice as long, roughly. Okay, that's pretty cool, right? Now I don't have to guess exactly where that stem is. Now I have other tools I can use to compare that, see if that's right. So let's move on to tool number 2. And it is simplify shapes. Okay, simple. What does this mean? Well, it means simple but characteristic. It has to be simple, right? Or it has to be simple, or maybe, simple, right? This is the easiest thing we could do. But if that's all I do, it's simple, but it's not too challenging. It's not too satisfying. And it's not that accurate either. But if I do this one, now this one tells me it might be a pear, it could be a face, it needs a little more information. Maybe it needs, this. And now you pretty much know what that is. It's not all the way there yet. It's low resolution. It's blocky. It's rough hewn as if you've cut it out of granite, right? But that's what we want, to get it on the paper. So simple, but characteristic. This one on the right is more characteristic than the one on the left. They're both simple, but this one, at least you know that it's some kind of fruit. I would wager that you might guess that. Okay, so what we do in traditional art is the straight line block in, like the straight line envelope block in. So in the block in, it's called block in because it's blocky and rough hewn as cut from stone, right? Low resolution, straight lines. We call it the straight line block in. So if we're going to do this, simplified shapes, then I'm going for straight line stuff. So I create a straight line block in. Remember, I find the height of my object. I might even put the angle in, that attitude, that I think that it's got a slight tilt. It's not completely symmetrical. And then I'm going to just throw down very straight lines to try and account for this thing as best that I can, to where they connect, as if you stretched cellophane or saran wrap tight over this thing. Can you imagine that? Or just some kind of material, some cloth, and you stretched it tight, it would look like that. It would get caught on the vertices, right? The places where it was where the corners were. So it's going to show you the corners. It's easier to draw straight lines than for me to approximate, 1 in a million, will I get this curve of this thing exactly right? So it's easier to straighten that out and then come around and round out the curves. Okay, so line segments are easier. So I've got a lot of work to do. So if this is the tip here, I'm a little bit high, so let me just correct that. Okay, so I've got the tip, I've got the bottom, so I have this height, and my pear is somewhere in here. Take out the construction lines so it doesn't get confusing. And I know that the top of the actual pear is in here, let's say. So I'm going to vertically take a measurement there. And it comes out to the left, and then it makes its descent here. So I'm cutting away, right? Then it takes another turn and moves towards the bottom. Straight line envelope block in. So again, I'm just kind of stretching cellophane over this thing, saran wrap. This is kind of fun. It's, you get a lot of structure with this. When you draw with straight lines, you get a lot of corners, you get a lot of structure. And I think that that's good, because structure is the first thing to go in a drawing. Because remember, this is all illusion. It's flat and 2D. It's not 3D. So it's easy to get this XY thing, but the Z illusion part, that's the first thing to when you get into a drawing to have things start to flatten out. So you want to really keep that structure, overstate the structure, and then back off on it, right? Overstate it and then back off. That's my little theory. Okay, so I've got this more refined, faceted envelope, and it's looking more and more, hopefully, like this thing. So I'm gonna erase this just a little bit here. And so I've got to account for this. How do I know how far out it goes? Well, if I drop a vertical plumb line from the edge of the pear, I'm going to get my answer because they line up exactly somewhere, let's say there. And I'm just going to block in this thing. I'm going to find remember, I'm going to capture the action. There's the action, right? That the attitude, the lifeline, everything has a gesture or an action line. And so I'm just going to, get its orientation, its position in space, and then start to describe the form. That's all you need to draw. Capture the action and describe the form in space. That's drawing. How do I know that? Because someone greater than me said it. That someone is Glenn Vilppu, the awesome, amazing teacher who is still alive. He's an octogenarian, I think. And such a great teacher. So there's my kind of simplified shape type deal. Straight line block in, straight line envelope block in. That's simplifying your shapes, right? So I gave a little more information there but I could have used two circles, simple shapes. Again, I used straight line simplified shape initially, so that's fine. Whatever works for you, that you can distill down that information that conveys what this thing is and use it. Okay, so that's number 2, simplify shapes. Number 1 was the proportion. Check your proportions. Let's move on. What is this third one? Is check your angles. All right, so angles, I might move this down here so we get some room here. Okay, so when you check your angles, I'm going to be checking the angle. Let's say, how do I know what angle is something at? Like this, the angle of this thing, or the angle of this thing, the angle, right? You're just kind of checking angles one against another, right? These two seem to be parallel, and these two sides are kind of parallel. And you try to find comparative angles within the object that you can relate one to another. So it's a way of measuring, and the idea is, if I know point A, tell me in the chat if this gets too like lost or something. But if I know point A and I know point C, I can find a third point, let's say here somewhere on this curve, B. Okay, let me check the chats real quick. Yeah, John says he sees a lot of good measurements techniques being used and not a lot of face planes, and I'm confused when starting a portrait when the face is on a slightly side angle. Yeah, well, that's when it does get more tricky. One thing for that is to find the center line, and then that helps with the symmetry. But things do change from when you're looking straight on and neutral and everything's symmetrical. You have a 3/4 view. It's quite dramatic, the relationship of one thing to another. So, but some of these simple ideas may help. So if I know A and C, okay, I can find the third point B. So if I know where A and C are in relationship to one another, and then I find the relationship of B, let me take this off. So there's A and B, A and C. So I'm kind of guessing that this is the angle of this line segment between A and B. It's still a question. So to really focus in and tie this down to find out where B is, I've got to find the angle between B and C. Okay. So this it's called triangulation. You're triangulating just the way the sea captains did in the open seas. They used the stars, they used land masses to triangulate to find their way across vast distances. Okay, so these angles here between C and B, between A and B, between A and C help. So if we know A and C and we know the angles there, right, we can find B. And so if I had my angle, but was off here, say I went over here and that angle became bigger, then my B would be off down here. It would be incorrectly placed for B. So I'm using these angles for precise placement. I don't know if that made sense. So what if we wanted to find another place like D down here? Well, if I know 2 points, I can find any third point. So now I know 3 points, A, B, and C. Maybe I can use B and C to find E. So if I know the angle between B and C, and I find the angle, right, I can use my stylus or my paintbrush and find the angle like hands on a clock as an estimation and then put it down on the paper and then draw it. Here's my check. I check it by finding the angle between C and D. I take that angle, put it down on the paper, draw it, and hopefully it's going to intersect the line I drew for B and D. It's going to intersect there. It's going to give me that coordinate, that point D. So it's a little bit complicated, but if you study that a little bit, I think it'll make sense. And if you practice triangles to get this idea. Because the more, now I have 4 points, I can find any other point, E. And so the more points I find, the more ways I can check. So if I didn't know exactly where D is, I could check it with the angle between A and D, right? And again, sight an angle with my pen or my paintbrush, and then bring it down. And where they intersect, that's most likely where D is. And I just keep going on and doing the same process for E and F and G. And whenever I want to stop, then I can start drawing freehand. But it gives me, so I've got now 3 tools: proportion, simplifying your shapes with straight lines, and then this triangulation thing. And then you can check placement. So it's helpful to, if you have knowing your vertical and horizontal plumb lines, right? Those are really absolute things that you can check. They're standards you can check every other angle by, because it's a lot easier to check by a true zero slope or, vertical. We kind of know those are easy. They stand out, vertical, horizontal, and the angles are harder to judge. So we need something to compare them by. But for here, the placement of, let's say, this line A, and we need where B is, we can measure this line segment here. So we're using this little place where the pear bumps out. It's an obvious corner right here. And we're using that to draw like a tangent, a vertical plumb line up, so we can compare, right? Let me see if I can. We're taking this space in here, and we're sort of using it to measure the relationship between B and A. So we're checking the placement of things, just checking the placement of stuff. So let's say we've gone through a few steps, maybe 1, 2, and 3, or 1 and 2, and now we're just checking placement. So I can check where B is, how far this thing C is over here, right? I can just kind of, again, use a plumb line and kind of measure with a horizontal, and see what's the distance. Just what is this? I'm not dividing that up. What is that distance? What's that distance? That is the question to answer, right? What was that distance? And I'm just checking a placement one to another. You use these places on the figure or the object where it's an obvious, the widest point, or it's a corner, or you could do it at the narrowest point, right? You could say, well, this thing comes in here, and I want to compare it to this place D out here. So I'm just comparing that unit to see if I've got it right. Because if I drew D out here and this line was way out here, it'd be wrong. My pear is way too plump, right? It's way too wide. Because I'd compare it against the photo of the pear or the pear in my still life, and I'd be able to see it's not right, you know. And so I would measure this and then measure on my drawing. So that's really kind of a simple one. You're just checking the placement of stuff. And yeah, that's really helpful to find the widest points or the narrowest points, because there's the most obvious, and then find the placement of other stuff. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, and then the last one. on my checklist here is positive and negative shapes. So let's just move this over a little bit. Okay. Positive and negative shapes. This one's pretty obvious, but may not be obvious at first. Yes. What's a positive and negative shape? Anybody can tell me in the chat. Let me test you guys out. Anybody? Okay. So, well, let me just, the positive shape is the thing that you want to draw, and the negative shape is everything else. So, it's often helpful to draw a frame around your subject. And use in that way, you can use, let's do this. Okay. And that now you have a figure ground relationship. The figure is the pair, the ground is the thing. The ground is the background or whatever else isn't the pair. So this pair is the positive shape or space. I use those two interchangeably. And everything out here is the negative shape or space. And I'm going to use both tools in the tool belt to get this thing drawn in correctly. So if I'm having trouble drawing this pair, and let me just, I'm going to take that out and use this pair to the left. If I'm having trouble drawing this thing, what am I going to do? I'll show you what I do. If I'm just drawing this thing and I just can't get it with what I'm looking at as this pair, I just, well, maybe it's too low, and maybe this leaf is here, but I don't know, maybe it's too small. Maybe it's too, I just don't know, right? Well, what can help me is I can use, get the frame. I need another frame. There's my frame. I need another frame. So this is helpful if things, you're drawing exact size, like sight size, they call it. Okay. So in my drawing, I'm drawing this thing. I can compare, I can use the positive shape, but when I get stuck and I don't know about this leaf and how big is it, how tall is it, I can also say, well, I'm going to use not the positive shape, but I'm going to use the negative shape. And I'm going to say this distance from this leaf to the frame, right? That shape looks like something, right? There's a distance here. It's not up here because that distance now is too small. And it's not down there because that distance, when I compare it, that doesn't work. So I know it's maybe somewhere in here. And then the question is, where's the tip? Okay. Well, I also have a relationship of that tip to the outer boundary of the frame on the left side. So I could measure that and just bring it over, right? And so I'm using, again, the negative space, right? The inside border of that leaf right in here. Well, I can just use this space and measure that, right? I can use the leaf and say, well, this leaf is this wide, or this tall and this wide. Or if I can't get that, I can use the negative shape and say, well, shape in here, is so wide and so tall. And I'll use that. So I'll kind of draw. So what I'm doing is I'm drawing this shape in here. I'm not drawing the leaf or the pear. I'm drawing the shape in there. Makes sense? So now I have two ways of getting at this thing. If one way isn't clear, I'll just switch over and come at it through that lens, you know? Right? So in here, this shape has a certain height, width, and slope. Maybe I can get to my pear drawing that shape in here, not drawing the pear in here, but just drawing that other leftover piece. So you got to switch over. It's like when you see an ink drawing of one head, there's two heads in there. There's a head of a young lady and a head of an old witch. You've seen that before. And you can't see the other one until, boom, suddenly it's there. And then you can't switch back and see the first one. You know what I'm talking about. It's kind of like that. You got to kind of get good at this and draw this stuff in here if you can't draw that stuff in there. Okay. And so that's another way to help you. Look at the positive and negative spaces, and that's going to help you account for everything. So there's 5 ways, a checklist. I hope that helps. Let's see. Subject is positive part. The frame is helpful for portrait. Yeah. So if you frame things, it can be helpful as a boundary to really account and measure things against, especially the negative space, because it becomes a shape. Without the border of the frame, it's just goes on to infinity. So there's no shape there that we can reckon with, that we can gauge. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. 5 ways to do that. Let's see. So any questions here? Let me know in the comments if that was good, helpful, or if you had questions. Let's go on to the critique here. All right, we're going to jump in and I'm going to go through these. I'm just going to, this by Neil Taylor. Look at this thing. Form, Radiohead. This guy's one of my favorite singers. Radiohead's so amazing. I forgot his last name. You guys like Radiohead as well? Let me know in the comments, man. Then that means we got something in common together. Radiohead. Okay. This looks great, Neil. I love it. There's almost, nothing I want to say to it. The material indication, like the skin, the turtleneck, right? The texture, the hair, everything reads really well. Now, this is a tough one because what kind of lighting is this? Anybody in the chat, let me know what lighting this is. It's tough. We're not used to seeing this. Right? So you've taken the really heavy shadow and lightened it up so we could see, the forms in his face. And that's good for a portrait, because if it's all too dark, then it's not really what we typically think of as a good, a portrait. I mean, it might be cool artistically, right? But if it was a portrait, it'd be a little dark. You'd want to see the sitter would want to see some of their face, right? So that was good. You've got the tilt, you've got the angle, you've got the gaze, you've got the correct kind of head, the head type. So I think it's all good. If I took it and but I did adjust value just for, and I just kind of went more into, you could go a little darker and it still holds up. It's a little, shiny graphite maybe. So it needs a little punch because the darkest thing is that area under the neck by the jaw, and that's not where we want to focus. We want to focus in on, the guy's eyes, his features, and then we can, oops, then we can take out some of this stuff that we don't really care about. Like we don't care about his neck and stuff, right? See how that brings some focus to it? And that could have been the lighting under which you took the photo. It's graphite, it's shiny, all that stuff. But so just, I don't know. So I'm just going to comment on what I see. But that's better. I think it's a little better. Now we've got some intensity to the eyes, you know. Oh, we could go even further, just burning things here and there. Let's see how far we could go with that. Just a little dark accents to make it. You want to go sparingly with your dark accents. Don't overuse them, right? Your dark accent in this one was under the neck and this patch right on the shoulder. Okay, it distracts from the beautiful work that you're doing. Yeah, light's coming from the back. Backlighting. Perfect, Daryl. Yeah. High contrast, right, Jody? It's high contrast backlighting with what's this lighting around the perimeter, around the contour. Anybody know some technical names for that? Okay, so great job, Neil. Love it. Okay, let's move on here. Oh my God. When I saw this one, I knew whose it was. That's right, Mimika. Halo. Daryl said that lighting is halo. Rim lighting. We call it RIM, RIM, in the concept art business. In the photography business, they call it like a kicker. They set up these long lights on the side, and they create that white rim that cuts the figure out from the background. So if you want your figure to pop, draw a heavy black line around it, or use that concept of bounce light or these rim lights that pop the figure forward, separating from the background. All right, Mimika, this is a gorgeous right here. I'm guessing this is Bob Dylan, but it could be somebody you know. It looks like an older photograph, but this guy looks like Bob Dylan to me. Is that right? Okay. So, wow. Look at that hair. You can't even see it in the photo, but look what you did. It's like beautiful. It's like alive. It's moving. And it's, I don't know. It's beyond words. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like has a life. It's living there on the paper. And I'm just trying to reference it in my mind, like things that I've seen or paintings that successful paintings I've seen that have that quality. And, I've seen that in not just hair, but you could draw trees this way. You could draw foliage and in this kind of way where the tree has life, it's breathing, the wind is blowing through it. And so this kind of the way that you've handled this with these quick gestural kind of lines, but they're not haphazard. They flow in certain directions that hold things together, right? Like this is flowing. It's not this, right? It's nice S curves, right? that relate to one another. C curves. It's organized. Tight C curves here. And they go this way, they go that way. And that's movement. That technically, that's how we draw movement, is these kind of C curves, S curves, and in relationship to one another, C curves with a gap in between, the next one a little lower in the chain, creates movement. Right? We have a lot of ways we can play with that relationship between, but it's the gap, jump, pick it up, another gap, pick it up, and it's fun, you know. It's different than if I just do a straight line like that. That's a curve, but it's sort of like just a piece of twine on the ground. It's inert, it's not really moving. But if I do the same thing and kind of let your eye fill in, these little gaps, your eye jumps and follows the trail of breadcrumbs. And that's called rhythm, that's called gesture, it's called flow. And so, yeah, I love that, how you did that. And then your rendering of the face and describing the forms is really cool, really nice. Now let's this right here was textbook right here. The form factors, the lighting factors to make things look 3D, right? These lighting factors, these are basically highlight, halftone, core shadow, reflected light, cast shadow. That's what that is. You got it. You know it. It's not even in the photo, but you put it in there and it makes your drawing better, right? Your job is to make it better. Same thing on the nose. You've got some half light or highlight, and then a halftone area, and then a core shadow, reflected light, and then cast shadow all in here. You know, your core shadow is in here too. So it's all working. You're starting to innovate and create with this kind of stuff. Now, here's an area where we can tighten down. It's in edges, and edges are subtle. They're so powerful. And yet, if we don't pay attention to them enough, I think, but they do great work for us. So it's the idea that the form shadow, there's two kinds of shadows, the form shadow and the cast shadow. So if we look at this sphere up here, I have a form shadow. Where is it? Right here at the terminator. Right here at the terminator. Okay, that form shadow is soft on a sphere. Okay, and we have a cast shadow. Those are your two kinds of shadows. One is soft, one is crisp, right? So what you need to do is, if you're so inclined, come back in here and look a little bit more carefully and start to crispen up. Oh, so what I wanted to say though, real briefly, was that the form shadow and the cast shadow follow each other like brother and sister. So notice there's a form shadow, and then that cast shadow is like a projection of the object that's blocking the light. So the form shadow describes the form. Cast shadow is a projection of the object that's blocking the light. Okay, that might be a good way to think about it. But they follow each other, form, cast, form, cast. So if we go down to the reference and we look at it, find that here we have, this is fun, we have form shadow, right? It's soft, it's broken, It's describing form. Comes down here. We have a little bit of form, but there's cast shadow right there. The cast shadow is a projection of this brow that's blocking the light. Okay. And then the nose projects out and gets back into the light, right? Here on the cheek, we have the form shadow. Its brother, cast shadow. Form shadow here. Cast shadow there, right? Form shadow. Cast on the lower lip. Form. Cast. Form. Really tight cast. Form. Cast. Get it? They follow each other. That's so fun. So the form shadows are here, here, right here, 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 and the cast shadows are just following them, or right there, there, there. So they have this relationship. Okay, the one on the nose, there's the form shadow. The cast shadow is like, we don't know where it is. It's all, all over here. It's off the page. Okay, because this stuff's all in darkness right there. The cast shadow just covers his whole face. So we have pretty much kind of split lighting, half in shadow, half in light. But just, okay, so think about that. And then, that makes it simple. Now you can go through your drawing and pay attention to this and sharpen your pencil. If you don't have a sharp pencil, I'm going to be mad with you. Okay. I'm trying to get my paintbrush to work. It's going down. I don't know why it's not. B and D. What's happening? Was working. Huh. That is so strange. Okay, got some trouble here. Maybe I can reboot my Photoshop and see. Let me quit Photoshop real quick and then open it back up. Just whatever. Save. Don't save. Just whatever. Save. Don't save. All right, so sometimes this happens, and I just want to be quick about it here. I just shut it down. See if I can bring it back up here. So let me check the comments. I told you, Bob with long hair. That's what Zoran says. Bob with long hair. Yeah. Ravi, thanks. Talking about shadow. Yes, absolutely. Did I even have it? Okay, so let's jump back in. I hope this works. Bear with me. Thanks a lot, guys. Sorry about that. Let's see if this is going to work here. All right, so we're going to go through. Remember, let nothing stop you, right? If your machine, your technology, or whatever goes haywire in the middle of a broadcast to many people or live, just don't let it bother you. Okay, don't let it get to you. And sometimes this this here XP pen that I'm using, it'll mess up. Something will happen. And like right now, it is not drawing. So I would have to basically shut down my machine. And so maybe we can just call it there tonight, unfortunately, man, because I was just gonna dig in here. There's some great stuff that we can get to next time, like this one and this one here. And these are cool. These are all things that I want to get to and was hoping to get to tonight. Right? Okay, so I think I'm not going to be able to resurrect this machine here. It's doing something, but oh, I know what it is. I think I know what it is. Okay, it's that tricky little button on my pen. It's not programmed exactly right. And so when I click it, one side selects color, the other one makes it into an eraser. I don't want that. So I got to reprogram that later. Okay, so what I was going to say, you guys, is Mimika, you got to go and assess your edges. This is called your edge path. Let's look, it's soft. You got that one here. Good. Then it's kind of soft in there, right? Then here it's really crisp. That's the cast shadow part. Keep it crisp. Don't lose it and let it fade away. It's part of what's going to be instrumental in really describing the form. So you want to keep those edges crisp and they're in the shadow, right? You've got it kind of light and questionable here. Okay, this is all nice and soft, really good here. This is all nice and soft. Then it gets super duper crisp right here. That's super duper crisp next to the nice soft thing that you did makes soft thing look softer, and it makes the crisp thing look crisper next to each other, right? So it's the context. I'm not trying to make this a great drawing. I'm just trying to tell you where you would, kind of go ahead and do this, what to look for on your drawing, right? That's nice and soft right there, but here, boom, you've got to pick that up. You got to start making those critical edge distinctions. Okay. And it's so simple, and you're not going to struggle with this anymore. You're going to be so happy. You're going to send me letters and fan mail saying, Chris, the little brothers chasing each other down the form changed my life. Okay. So there's a little cast shadow. See right there, that little guy. Then it goes into the form shadow, which is nice and soft. Then there's a crispy. So sharpen your pencil and draw your edges accordingly. Start to, number one, look at them and say, is it hard or soft? And then find your technique to make it soft. Side of the pencil, cross hatching, whatever you got to do, right? And once you inject the drawing with that kind of information, it's going to go to another level. Let me tell you, I'm telling you right now, it is going to go to another realm. You believe me? Let me know in the chat if you believe me. See what I did to that nose and that bone, that soft, kind of firm edge next to the cast shadow on the root of the nose. Makes it all come together. Come together. Okay, just going to darken that a little more, just so it's kind of more in the shadow. Screwed up. Okay. right? So that edge, so crisp against the soft one, against the crisp one in this area. Put that shape back into the family of darks. Don't let your lightest dark be lighter than your darkest light. Oh, your darkest light. Your lightest dark can't be as light as your darkest light. Remember that. Memorize that. Okay, so that's all. I know you're going to get this in like 2 seconds. And I can't wait to see, what you can do with it. Mamika and everybody else watching this amazing live stream. Okay. So that's that little part on edges that I wanted to tell you about. But it works wonders. It's just such an amazing thing. Okay. So amazing drawing. Next level would be to kind of tighten those edges up and see what you can do with that. And my crisp edges are a little out of value because I was trying to do them very clearly, so I exaggerated, but you'd want to make sure they're not, black like a cartoon, but in the context of this drawing, they would be the appropriate value. Okay. Okay, awesome job, Mamika. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, let me go on. Yeah. You know what? I got to get a drink of water so I can talk. Just give me 5 mins. Give me 5 mins. 5. 5 minutes. Back. In. Okay. Ooh. Be back. Okay, I'm back. You guys still here? Okay. All right. This one is this Zoran? Is that you? Looks like you. Zoran, what's up? Okay. I'd say this one it's got lovely color. So I love the color. I love the composition and the creativity of adding some feathers. I think I'd like to see a little more form in here. And now the it's the local color that's creating the, let's say, the difference in shapes, and the boundaries between the shapes is because of the local color. The hair is dark, right? On average, the skin is light on average. So it's that light against dark that's creating, let's say, it's not quite creating form, but um, so what we need is some variation within each local color shape or shape value shape that can describe the form with the lighting factors, the highlight, the halftone, the core shadow, reflected light, a shadow. So like her nose has all those like form factors. And it's revealing the form through light. And over here, you're kind of getting there, but you just have a kind of a change in color that's a little bit darker than here, but it's not quite describing form yet. So the places that we have to do that are because the lighting is so soft, right? You just have it there and you have it here. There's a plane change. So we need to kind of introduce a change in value so that our eye kind of buys into the idea that there's form here. And so there's a plane here. Look at the side plane of her mouth. Okay. There's a plane here under her mouth next to the chin as it tucks in. And there's a plane here, a very subtle one, but it starts to turn even more away from the light. So this plane here on the side of the nose is receiving the same amount of light as this part of the cheek. They're both planes facing the same direction, so they get the same value. Remember, same value, same plane, different value, different plane. Let me know if that makes sense. So in this scenario, everything that's facing to the left is going to get shadow, more or less, and everything facing to the right is going to be lighter. Okay, that neck is there. It's on the same plane, same orientation as side of the nose, side of the mouth, and that cheek. And this is subtle here. A little part of the neck in there facing away. And then in here is kind of a little bit darker. So when I darken that up, see, it brings a focus to her face more. See that? Because they're both competing. They're both the same value in the cheek as the same value on the chest. If I just darken that up, her face starts to pop, right? So I'm saying, calm down. Just calming this down over here and not letting it occupy the same value on the value scale. Controlling my values. Okay, let me see. Yeah, there's one on the lower lid there. And so that's enough to kind of get some form injected in there. Bring up the saturation. There's Lots of subsurface scattering in the cartilage of the nose. I could bring it a little more red. Get that ball of her nose going. 'Cause again, a lot of blood vessels, a lot of cartilage. The light goes in, scatters around underneath, and lights it up, and then some of that bounces back to our eyes, and we see red light because it's been under the skin, lighting up the blood vessels there. So, does that make sense? We have different value, different plane, or same value, same plane, corollary to that. And that's how you're going to get it to go bump, are these modeling factors. And I put things in very rough, and then guess what I'm going to do? Can anybody guess what I'm going to do? What's my plan? I have a plan. I have to have a plan when I go into this. It's nice to have a plan. Not everything has to be all planned, but when I need a little something to wrangle all of the complexity of what I'm doing here, drawing, right? The medium, the paper, my eyes, the subject, the lighting. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in and assess my edges just like we did with Mamika. I'm going to put it in just kind of rough and right direction, right shape, right value, and then I'll do my edge pass later, a little bit later. All right, let's do my edge pass just for the sake of time. Soft edge here on the cheek. Make sure I'm doing my right thing. Soft edge on the left part of the cheek. And then the magic starts happening. Soft edge here on the sternocleidomastoid. Soft there. Don't want it anywhere near sharp edges somewhere where it's going to attract attention, take away from her beautiful face. And there. See how powerful the edges are? It's always so fun to see something flat on a piece of paper become realistic and lifelike just because of a few things like edges and values and shapes. If you get excited by this, let me hear you in the chat say yeah, 'cause I'm with you. It never gets old. I've been doing this a long time. It's always fun. Something like that. Um, and you could go on and get this really going, but you did a beautiful job on these eyes. That's where, it really pays off because everything else is like a setup. It's just set up for you to put the cherry on top, which is those eyes. And so what I'm doing here is just supporting what you already did so lovely in the eyes. Okay. And so I'm just bringing in the supporting cast to kind of make it ring true, to bring out the emotion and the of the moment, the expression and emotion of this girl in this moment. Maybe is that your daughter? I want to guess. And everything. No? So there. Okay. So that's kind of what I was thinking. You could go very flat and pastel as a style, you know, you could do that. So I'm not sure what you were going for, and that's totally valid. Or you could, pump it up a little bit for the 3D effect. So it depends on what you want to say and everything like that. So that's a beautiful job. And yeah, everybody's like, yeah, David's yeah, Jody's yeah, your average monkey's yeah. Malavika. Where are you from? Malavika. She says yeah. John R says yeah. I say yeah. So we're all saying yeah together. Okay, Zoran, that's awesome. I'm gonna move on here to this and just say yeah. I'm gonna say yeah. What do you guys say? Do you guys say yeah to this one too? Stephen Dempsey, looking good, man. I think it's quite nice. I'd like to see something because you did such a great job on the face. Maybe a little variation in the background because it kind of stands out as like this a flat background. It doesn't match the level. So you want to bring things up to a common level so it doesn't stand out. So if you have just a little bit of blurry variation here and there is kind of all you need to do. Whatever you want to do back there, could help. And then just if it's too much, I always do, put it on, take it off, put it on, take it off. Too much, too little, too much, and back and forth. It's kind of a back and forth kind of deal for me. So there. So that's not too overwhelming, and it's kind of something's there. And it's not just flat, just a little something. But otherwise, the eyes, the rendering on this stuff, looking awesome. Look at that nose. Look at that skin texture. Great. I bet this took you a long time to do. That's cool. The wrinkles, the pores in the skin, and the hair down to those details. Lovely. Great job. So I got nothing to really I can't really pick something out on this that's really glaring. It's not. Nothing really there. It's all done very well, I say. So great job. The only thing that might be just bugging me a little bit is the connection between, the transition between the skin and the mustache here. And you could break up that edge. See, edges are so important. And they really tell a lot of the story. Oh, there it is. Okay. And so you can see on this reference how that edge is not a line. It's broken up. And so I'm going to call it like a soft edge. And so I'm going to draw it as such and just break that up just a little bit. Introduce some hairs in that area. In the transitions, that's so important because if we don't do our transitions, people notice, right? It's the connections, like how the arm connects to the torso, right? And how the lower leg connects to the upper leg. If the connections aren't looking valid or like they work, like they're a hinge joint, people notice that stuff right away. So the connection can also be like a texture, like a connection through texture of the skin to the hair. And so that's kind of an edge thing, you know, for texture. So I would just, play it down just a little bit here and there. Okay. Otherwise, awesome job. I love it, Stephen. Okay, we're going to go on and then I'm going to wrap it up. Who do we have here? Joe D. Jody's here. Is Jody here? Yeah. All right, Jody. What's going on? I'd say this is a really tough photo to work from because, again, the local color is creating like the contrast, but it's not creating form because the way that it's shot and it's kind of pixelated and stuff, there's not enough shadows that really can sculpt out the form. And so you're kind of ending up tracing the lines. And so I think you're trying to go for realism, but it looks like lines. And to make something look real, you need values and you need forms and not so much line because line becomes very stylized. And if you try to mix the two, it looks a little awkward because you're not going one way or another. You're trying to do realistic, but it looks like lines, right? And so you have more of kind of like a concept. You have a concept of the eye. And that's good. And, I love pen and ink and I love line drawing and stuff like that. But to get a realistic illusion, you need something more. You need value in there. And so, this is my concept of the eyebrow connection here. Very soft edges, this guy. The boundary, see the lighting, the boundary between like the nose and the eye socket and the eye are all very unclear. So you have to rely on what do you know about these things instead of what they're actually sort of presenting to you. But you need some value now. And that's what this thing does not have is value to kind of start to bring in the illusion. So the line is the concept. And then this stuff that we call value I'm bringing into it, that's going to be your bread and butter for creating form, the illusion of form, the drama, the depth, and all that good stuff. It's kind of small. I can't see the reference. Okay. So pick a better photo and make sure it has good shadows and make sure there's high enough resolution so you can see what's going on. Give yourself like a head start here. Don't make it hard. It's already hard. Find a good photo and give yourself, again, like a chance here. Because I know you can do it because you got some skills here. I can see. So that's kind of the difference. And you have some shading going on, but you also have some deep lines in here that they kind of stand out. And it's destroying the illusion that I think you want to create and can create. So, but all your shapes, let's say, I'm going to, say the good things about it. The shapes, excellent. The proportions, excellent. The features, excellent. The connections of the eyes to the nose, nose to the mouth, the chin to the chin, all excellent, right? So you've got these things going. That's already 4 things, right? You need about maybe 7 or 8 things. Value would be another a thing that you need. And then the edges and the lighting. Okay, so these are the things you did good, awesome. And these are things that, because the photo was so bad, you didn't really have a chance to get to these ones. And so, nevertheless, it is not bad at all. You could continue to take this knowledge that I said and continue along with the drawing. So you can save this drawing. Okay. So that's the good news. So I would go into the eyes and I'd sort of make a little gradation there. I'd darken it up, give him the, the deep soul when you peer into his eyes, because he's lived on this planet for such a long time. Give him that moody, mysterious windows of the soul kind of thing, and just go maybe darker and take out some of the deep lines that you put in there. Just knock them back a little bit. We don't need that. It's a little bit iconic or symbolic the way you're drawing a line around everything. Maybe, back off on your lines. You're good with lines. Now start thinking about values, because you got your shapes. Those are good. Just think about what the shape is, like that mustache. You got the shape right, but it's light against the local color or value of the skin, right? So that's the kind of comparison that we'd have to darken up the skin a bit to get the beard to start looking the correct value, right? And then I would lighten the beard a little bit against that. Get it? So we have to play this game. Right, so we have local colors, the local color of the mustache, local color of the skin. It's an average light. And then we compare those two things. And then you've got to describe the plane changes with your values to start getting it to look like form. Now those teeth are that's where you could go white, almost. And you don't need to draw every tooth, because that looks kind of unreal. Just draw the shape and a hint of the divisions between the teeth. And then, of course, you have to have a catch light in the eye. Okay, that's the catch light. That's the thing that says this guy's alive. If we don't have that, it tends to look soulless and a little bit dead, right? And then you've got the, the contrast, my dear, is what is gonna make this, your drawing, come alive. And we're back to, because I'm on that. Okay. The shape of this shadow and the edge, it's crisp. The edge of the hat is crisp. And so on and so forth. So you're gonna have to push your values, not so much your lines. Start comparing one value to another and have like your 5 value scale next to you, and compare the values in the photo, and then make your drawing, relate to that. They don't have to be exactly, but um, yeah. Where was my little thing? No, it's not there. Okay. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. Um, right. And everything that's not, since this is like a flash from the front, everything facing front is splashed with light, everything turning away, like the sides of the head, they're going to get a modeling tone. And just analyze what the forms are doing in relationship to the light, what the planes are doing. Are they facing it? Yes. Then they get light. Are they turning away? Yes. Then they get a darker value. That's all. Pretty simple, but you got to do it a few times and screw up a bunch of times, and then till you get it, till you start to understand it. Not rocket science. You can do it. Okay. So let's let's call that one Jody, and you can bring this one back and continue on and then resubmit it, or you can do another new one. Okay. Thanks for putting that in there, because there's a lot we can learn, right? Okay, I think I have this one. Maybe I'll just wrap it up there, because we're already an hour and 45 into it. I'm sorry, whoever did this one. We're gonna get to it next time, or resubmit it next time. Okay. And guys, I think I'm all talked out, and I'm so happy you were here and that we could be together. And we'll be. Oh, look at my background. It's sucking. You know why? Because it got dark. It got dark as I was talking. So, gosh, remember to put some comments down. Give the video a like. Because it's going to help push it, the algorithm, push it out there. Put some comments. Support the channel. Subscribe if you haven't, and join the Facebook group too. If you haven't joined the Facebook group, it's a great place for artists that are learning and doing portraits. It helps you grow. Here it is. It's Mastering the Art of the Portrait. And we've got, 3.6K members in here. So it's quite a big group, and everybody's just learning and posting, and we're doing challenges and all that stuff. So stop by my Draw Juice website and check that out. Join the mailing list if you want to get updates on content and tips and tricks and alerts to when I'm putting out videos and stuff like that. So that's drawjuice.com. Okay, everybody. So we'll see you next time. Thanks so much. And as soon as I can find the button, I'm going to turn this thing off. Okay. All right. We'll see you next week. Bye.